Hi, welcome to today's video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about contracts for freelance developers. So developers who are into web development, mobile app development, and need a contract to set up between they and their client. Well, today we are in good luck. We found a contract template where we can use or we can work around for both ourselves and our clients. Yes, AI can present or write up contracts for us, but there's a caveat. Yes, this may not include or this may not cover all liabilities or faults, but this is a template I've gotten from a pro or a professional in the programming field. Okay, so let's take a deep dive into the template. And first of all, I'm going to read a disclaimer, and of which this disclaimer needs to be deleted before you make use of the template. Okay, so let's go into the template. Okay, so disclaimer: by utilizing this contract format for your project, you expressly agree that we assume no liability for any legal proceedings or adverse outcomes that may arise, whether directly or indirectly, concerning your use of this template. This template provision does not constitute legal advice and is not being validated or endorsed by a licensed attorney. This template is provided solely as a tool to assist you initiating your own project. We disclaim all responsibility and accept no liability for any consequences, damages, or legal actions that may result from your use of this template. Proceed to use at your own risk. You shall always consult legal advice from a qualified source. P.S. All yellow highlighted fields require input. So as stated here, as disclaimed over here, you need to reach out for professional legal advice. Okay, there we have this AI legal assistants and everywhere. AI legal assistants online everywhere, but these things can be country specific, and you sorting or reaching out to a legal practitioner around you, it may be expensive though, but yeah, it's worth it. Okay, so let's take a deep dive into the template itself and start working with it. Okay, so your name and your client's name agreement, you put all those into the template, the address, the details, and the role of each person. So you are the developer, or if you are receiving it on your team, or whatever your role is, a senior developer, junior developer, whatever your role is, you put that in there. So let's take the scope of work. So what you see there, number one, that's a clause, and you have sub clauses, that's 1.1, 1.2, and so on. So let's move on with it. The parties agree that the developer, for the total fee specified in clause 8, shall create and publish app or website within a time frame. Okay, app or website name will be developed with the following main deliverables. So you have main deliverable 1, 2, all the way to 3, or how many deliverables you have, you state them. The project will progress through X phases at a time, each running on a monthly basis, wherein all deliverables will be systematically addressed. A comprehensive breakdown of all deliverables pertaining to each phase is outlined in clause 2. Okay, each phase deliverables are subject to adjustment during development as tasks may be reallocated across phases. So that's that for the deliverables, scope of work. So let's take the deliverables. All deliverables for each phase of the project are as follows. So you have phase 1 and the main deliverable 2, send out the phase 2, phase 3 in the order. And also you can add in the non-priority functionality. So these non-priority functionalities are things that are going to be in the project by of no high, or they are not a priority. So you add them in there, and if they are being achieved or they're going to be achieved, you state them. Okay, so let's move on to clause number 3, the developer responsibilities. What the developer is responsible for: development of all deliverables mentioned in clause 2, manually test all the website and app components to ensure they work as intended, address client queries without delays to stick to the development projected timeline, retain any and all code, databases, software, designs, and documents pertaining to the client within time frame upon completion or termination of the project. So that's that for developers' responsibility. Now let's move on to the client's responsibility. Provide all necessary information, resources, and initial payment that might be required for the developer to initiate work. So get some money before you can start the work. Okay, create and set up accounts for services such as Firebase, MongoDB, as all the services you need. The client is supposed to create those accounts, and any others that are required for the development of the app or website. With the website name. Communicate with the developer for improvement as and when required to address the developer's queries without delays to stick to the development projected timeline. Okay, so now let's move on to the intellectual property. The intellectual property rights. Okay, the client recognizes that the ownership of the website and apps remains with the developer until the client has fulfilled the final total payment as specified in clause 8. The developer acknowledges and honors the confidentiality of the information entrusted by the client through the website. Under no circumstance will the developer distribute, repurpose, or utilize the design, concept, or assets beyond the scope of development without explicit consent from the client. So this is very, very important. So now let's move on to confidentiality and what this entails. So the parties mutually commit to treating confidential information, including not limited to codes, roadmaps, blueprints, designs, and strategies provided by either party during contract term with the utmost confidentiality. Such confidential information shall be utilized exclusively to fulfill services outlined in the contract and shall not be divulged to any third party without prior written consent from both parties. Confidential information shall mean the agreement and any information or materials disclosed by either party that would be reasonably considered confidential, including business, technical, financial, marketing, and personal information, customer to supplier details, know-how, designs, trade secrets, creative materials, or software. Both parties agree to keep all information confidential and not disclose any part thereof to any third party except as required for the proper performance of their obligations under this agreement. So that's that for the confidentiality. Now moving on to the term and termination. This agreement shall become effective on the effective date and shall continue until all obligations of both parties have been fulfilled or as otherwise mutually agreed upon in written. This agreement may be terminated in written by mutual agreement between both parties. So now let's move on to the fees and payment terms. Fees and payment terms. The client shall pay the developer monthly rates for X months, okay, number of months. Hence, the total payment sum for scope of work outlined in clause 1 is the monthly rate and number of months, which gives the total monthly sum. So that is that for the payments. Okay, so optional. The total payment sum may vary within a range of X percentage, the number of percentage their projects might last. Okay, this variance is contingent upon completion timing of the project, which may be affected by unforeseen circumstances resulting in either an earlier or later completion. Payment for each month shall be no later than X, okay, the number of days after receiving the invoice. An invoice will be sent out monthly at the end of each month during development. Okay, each party shall be responsible for their respective taxes, if applicable, and any other expenses incurred in connection with this agreement. So payment, tax, fees, and charges. Okay, all those stuffs. Okay, so the client agrees to bear additional expenses linked to any software services utilized for the app or website, including but not limited to Firebase and other services like MongoDB, Slack, and other stuff you use. Okay, however, Before incurring these charges and implementing the services, the developer will duly inform the clients regarding the nature of the cost and the specific services being considered. All payment shall be made via mode. Okay, you insert your mode of payment and the currency. So you are supposed to insert that. Okay, so now let's move on to force majeure. So a force majeure is one of the most important parts of any contract. Okay, so a force majeure refers to an exceptional and influential event beyond the control of parties. So beyond the control of the parties, which prevents the proper fulfillment of these agreements and was unforeseeable at the time of contract formation. Such events may include but are not limited to war, natural disasters, government actions, emergencies, emergency health situations, or other extraordinary circumstances. So that's that for the force majeure. So this that we've gone through so far are the major parts of the contract. Okay, so you have general provisions. So general provisions will walk you through what you need to do generally in the contract. Okay, so such as this agreement constitutes the entire understanding between the parties and supersedes all prior agreements and understanding, whether oral or written. Okay, so there's some agreement you had during your discussion, okay, during your first meeting phase, like, okay, let's do this, let's do that. This contract supersedes all those, okay, whether it was oral or it was written. Okay, now this agreement may be executed in counterparts, each of which shall be deemed an original, but all of which together constitute one and the same agreement. Any amendment to this agreement must be made in written and agreed upon by both parties. Okay, so this goes on. I'm going to leave a download link in the description below where you can download this. And last but not the least, so you have the client in developer, you have your name, position, date, and signature. So this is a contract template that developers can use to work. Okay, but note there's a disclaimer to this. There is a disclaimer to this. So this is it. I hope we can make good use of it as developers now and not fall short of what we can make out of our skills. Okay, so that's it for today's video. I'll catch you in the next video. If there's any requirements, if there's anything you'd like to know, or if there's any suggestion you'd like to give out, kindly leave it in the comment section below. And if there are any questions, any ideas you'd like to put out, leave it in the comment section below. Okay, so that will be it for today's video. I will see you in the next video. Out.